Ladies and gentlemen, the following segment of the podcast is presented exclusively by the Heritage Foundation. For 52 years, Heritage has fought tirelessly for America's founding principles and advancing conservative public policies. Much more than a think tank, Heritage is a conservative policy powerhouse, fighting for the everyday American to advance common sense policies and dismantle the D.C. bureaucracy. Our founding fathers gave us an extraordinary system of government, and the Heritage Foundation is dedicated to defending the heritage and carrying on their legacy for future generations. So get involved by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda by visiting heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Hope you had a good Passover for my Jewish friends. Now, man, we've got a lot to talk about, but I want to dig in here. A lot of violence out there. I mean, really hideous stuff going on. But before we get to that, let's get to this. Judges. The administration has taken the position that no federal judge can order a president of the United States to demand from another country that they take their citizen who's been deported to their country and bring them back to the United States. The administration has also argued that a judge does not have the power to interfere with foreign policy like that either. The administration is correct 100%. Now, I like to go back to the beginning, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, the beginning being the Constitutional Convention, sometimes before that. And this issue actually came up. You know, we didn't always have a Supreme Court and a president and separation of powers. They sat down in Philadelphia over that summer for a little over 5 months, and they worked out the details of this fantastic governing document, the Constitution. The world has never seen anything like our Constitution, then and since. And so they were creating this office of the presidency. They were creating this Supreme Court. They were doing something that had never been done before. 3 separate branches of government, the judicial, the legislative, and the executive. It had been mentioned couple hundred years earlier by Montesquieu in his writings. It was mentioned a little bit earlier than that by John Locke in his writings, but Montesquieu was very specific about what he had in mind. And they weren't the only ones. Divided power. Aristotle wrote about it. Cicero wrote about it. And if you look at England, once the monarchy began to lose power, they had a separate parliament and a monarch and a court system. At no time, not one syllable was expressed in support of the idea in any of the state ratification conventions that received the Constitution that the judiciary was lacking power, that this Supreme Court that they created was lacking power. But what's interesting, and I did a little review of this over the weekend, if you go back and you look at Madison's notes and you look at what they proposed about the presidency of the United States, they did have an idea that came up and was quickly rejected by the overwhelming majority of the delegates at the Constitutional Convention. And that was a judicial council. And this judicial council, as they were thinking about it, would oversee every decision that would be made by this president they were thinking of establishing. And so you would effectively have some kind of judiciary, some kind of court, some kind of judges having the power to veto a presidential decision or to help convince a president to change his decision, somehow, alter it or modify it. Now, three of the most powerful of the delegates who came up with this idea, two of them being Madison himself and John Dickinson, supported it. But the vast majority said no way. This president that we're thinking of establishing, this executive branch, there must be a distinction between the judges and the president and these members of the legislature. There must be a distinction. There must be a separation of powers. Because Montesquieu, as they would later write, informed them that if the legislative becomes part of the executive, or the executive becomes part of the judicial, or judicial becomes part of the executive, you will have tyranny. That's what he said. Now we bring it to modern day. We have a phalanx of judges unknown to you. Their resumes unknown to you. Their backgrounds unknown to you. Without your consent, without your knowledge, without your input in any way. Determining that they shall make executive branch decisions. That they will, in fact, be a judicial council, if you will, looking over the shoulder of the president, making decisions for the president in lieu of the president, or trying to force the president to modify his decisions. And they do this without any constitutional basis whatsoever than an interpretation of the Constitution which was wholly bastardized back in 1803 under Marbury versus Madison by a very partisan political Chief Justice by the name of John Marshall. That's the only basis upon which they're doing what they're doing. It completely changed the nature of our government. One of the great constitutional thinkers of all time was not a lawyer, but he was a historian / philosopher. And his name was Raoul Berger. And Raoul Berger wrote an entire book on this subject, and he was prolific in the books that he wrote and prolific in the research that he did, like few others. He and Robert Bork became good friends. But he was a professor. He became a professor. He didn't start out that way. He was an immigrant, a Jewish immigrant from Germany. And he talked about government by the judiciary. He did the most thorough analysis of this of anybody I've ever seen. He's not with us any longer, unfortunately, but you understand. And there is nothing that confers this kind of power on these courts. The lower, appellate, or Supreme Court for that matter. Nothing. They talk about the necessary and proper clause. Folks, you're going into second-year law school here with me, but I'm putting it in plain English. The necessary and proper clause. What's that all about? Well, the clause isn't actually called the necessary and proper clause, but it is a clause in the Constitution where Congress is granted the power to pass laws and the executive to enforce laws that are necessary and proper for what? For the general welfare of the public? No. For what? The more modern activists call this the elastic clause. The elastic clause. And so, you see, their perspective is the necessary and proper clause destroys the entire Constitutional Convention, the focus of the Constitutional Convention, the construct of the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, everything, just with this one clause, the necessary and proper clause, that somehow authorizes Congress to do whatever necessary and proper that Congress thinks is necessary and proper. So here you have two views from the hard left that are preposterous. One is that the judiciary, through judicial review that's not in the Constitution, power seized by the Marshall Court, embraced and expanded by subsequent courts, judicial review, we have the final say. Where's that written? Nowhere. And then that Congress can pass laws on anything it wants if it's necessary and proper. Necessary and proper meant what? It meant when Congress passes a law within the construct of the Constitution that has to do with national matters or has to do with the language that is specific to Congress under Article 1, that otherwise the states pass laws. The state create the bank, not the national bank that the Washington created and so forth. Now the states have all this authority. The lawmaking was released to be the province of the states. But with the necessary and proper clause, argue the big government types, basically Congress can pass laws on anything they want. And under the supremacy clause, whatever Congress says goes, whether the states like it or not. That is not what was debated and discussed at the Constitutional Convention. Nothing even like it. What the necessary and proper clause meant then and should mean today, if Congress passes a law legitimately within its Article 1 powers, defined authority, that it can pass additional laws that are necessary and proper for carrying out the laws that were properly passed in the first place. Or that the executive can take steps to execute laws that were properly passed under Article 1 in the first place. It didn't give Congress the power to pass laws on everything it wants. Necessary and proper. Oh, great. You with me on this, Mr. Producer? It gets a little heavy, but this is where we need to be. So we have a situation where the Supreme Court seized power from the other branches of government and says, we will say what is final, period. They call it implied powers. Implied powers can mean any power. Implied powers has no boundaries. What does that mean? That's number one. That's the court. Number two, Congress has seized power from the states that Congress does not have. The necessary and proper clause doesn't give it to Congress in any respect. Number three, the supremacy clause. What the federal government passes, the Congress passes is supreme to anything the state passes. No. It means if there's a conflict of laws, that is, where Congress is operating within its Article 1 powers and it passes a law that is legitimate under the Constitution, and let's say it conflicts with a state or several states' laws, under those circumstances, and those circumstances only, does the supremacy clause kick in and Congress wins the dispute. The federal government was to be very limited in what it could do. But what it could do, it had very powerful authority. But it had to operate within its zones, within its lanes. I know this is heavy. I've thrown concepts to you. I've thrown the Constitution at you. I've thrown what they've done to the Constitution at you. But it's very important to understand, implied power, judicial power, does not exist. The necessary and proper clause, which they claim allows Congress to pass laws on anything they want, that's not the necessary and proper clause in the Constitution. The supremacy clause of whatever the federal government does trumps the states. That's not what the supremacy clause means either. So you can see the centralization of power under the federal government. And this is what Donald Trump, whether they articulated at the Justice Department this way or not, it doesn't really matter. This is what they're trying to challenge and confront. The problem is the Supreme Court has given itself the power to make the final decision. And the lower courts have given to themselves the power to make the initial decision and usurp the power of the presidency. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leadership as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, the left will get excited about what I'll say. The reprobates and Mediaite would stand there and just hate Trump, hate Republicans, hate Fox, hate me, on and on and on. Basically, these are low IQ radical leftists, sit in their basements at home. I'd say they have a, five-day growth on their face, but I'm not sure they're even capable of that, Mr. Producer. They sit there with golden spoons in their mouths, but I want to have an honest discussion with you. It won't even take long on the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, which was passed in 1951. I'm literally doing this by memory. I think it was February 1951, but I study this stuff. And there are some people out there who don't have the foggiest idea what they're talking about, others who are trying to exploit this to attack President Trump and conservatives. But some people out there who say it doesn't say what it says. Of course it says what it says. And I want to make the case not only about what it says, but what we, as constitutionalists, as people who believe in liberty, what we should be thinking about the 22nd Amendment to the United States Constitution. And we'll do this right after the bottom of the hour. This one won't be as complicated. This is actually quite simple. We'll be right back. Folks, I need to talk to you about something crucial to the future of America. Our friends at the Heritage Foundation are on the front lines fighting for our conservative values. Heritage is dedicated to promoting policies that will help bolster our economy, protect our borders, and uphold the rule of law. They're working tirelessly to defend our Constitution and the principles that make America exceptional. To help accomplish this, they need you to complete their national survey on President Trump's agenda today. So you can participate in this survey by going to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Your responses are crucial to this survey, and they'll provide Heritage leadership with crucial feedback as they work closely with the folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. By completing this very important survey today, you're standing up for the values that have made this country great. And my friends at Heritage need you to act now to maximize their impact on President Trump's first 100 days. So please don't wait. Our future depends on you. Together, we can make a difference, and future generations inherit a nation that is free, prosperous, and strong. So please, right now, visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin, complete your survey, and join the fight for America's future. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call him now, 877-381-3811.
I also believe in what's called intellectual honesty. That's what we constitutionalists say. No activism. Read the text. If it's straightforward, then it is what it is. If it's not straightforward, then we look at what was intended when the text was written. Maybe we'll look at the debates around it or the language at the time and so forth. But that's what we seek to do. There needs to be a rule of law, and the Constitution is our rule of law. You and I favor term limits for members of Congress, don't we? I do. But you have to amend the Constitution to do that. Many states have term limits for their representatives. We do not, except for the President of the United States. The Constitution was, in fact, amended. Amendment 22. The 22nd Amendment to the United States, February 27. I just looked it up. I was close. I said February 1951. February 27, 1951. What happened? What would cause 3/4 of the state, actually more, of the states out there, that would include Democrat states, that would include Democrats, what would cause them to vote to limit the term of a president? Franklin Roosevelt caused it. Up until Franklin Roosevelt, no president ever served more than 2 terms. That was the tradition set by George Washington. Why did George Washington do that when George Washington could have been president for the rest of his life? Because Washington believed that was too akin to a king, a despot. And that was the tradition followed, no more than 2 terms, up until Franklin Roosevelt decided to run for a 3rd term. Then he decided to run for a 4th term, even though he was dying, even though he knew he was dying. 4 terms. The only president of the United States to serve more than 2 terms. And so Congress got concerned, including Democrats. They said, what if we have a popular Republican president? Now, to amend the Constitution, either through Convention of States or through Congress and the states, is very difficult. Very difficult. The first way, you need 2/3 of both houses of Congress to pass a proposed amendment. It has to have the exact same wording. They send it to the states, and then you need 3/4 of the state legislatures to ratify. That's a super-duper majority. Or a convention of states, where the states propose an amendment through a supermajority, and yet they still need 3/4 of the states to ratify what the states propose. Here's what the 22nd Amendment to the United States says. Ready? Section 1. This isn't plain English. It's so plain that even Joe Biden can understand this. No person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice, comma. That's where it really ends. And no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected shall be elected to the office of president more than once. Now, what they're saying there is, let's take an example. We have Calvin Coolidge. Harding died in office. So Calvin Coolidge finished the Harding term. Then he ran for his own term, and he served a total of 7 years. And so they're saying, well, Calvin Coolidge couldn't run again. Why? Because if he won, he will have been serving for 11 years. The cutoff is 10 years. 2 terms plus 2 years. That's 8. 4 plus 4 plus 2. 4 plus 4 plus 2. The same with Harry Truman. Just a few months after he was reelected and sworn in, Franklin Roosevelt passed away. Harry Truman stepped in. Harry Truman would serve a total of 7 years. He couldn't run again with this amendment if it had been in place, because he would have wound up serving more than 10 years total. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about now. So everything after that comma doesn't matter. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. That's 14 words. They could not be clearer. And that's the way it is. Obama couldn't run again. Clinton couldn't run again. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. Then we get all these kinds of conspiracy theories and other theories that are irrelevant too. Well, what if somebody runs for president and Donald Trump or whomever is vice president, and they've served 8 years, and then that person can step aside and that... No, none of that works. None of it works. And we don't want it to work. We're constitutional conservatives. We know what the 22nd Amendment means. We know why it was passed by Congress with a supermajority, then passed by the states with a super-duper majority. We know what was meant. There's really no debate. Even President Trump has said, I don't know. He doesn't bring it up. They bring it up to him. Well, we're going to get a group of people to really look at this. Well, look at it all you want. Stripes are stripes, dots are dots, and the 22nd Amendment is the 22nd Amendment. That's the way it is. This is why I spent the first part of the program discussing with you why it's so detrimental to our country, to our system, when the Supreme Court and the courts do what they do and have done what they've done, when Congress has done what it has done with the necessary and proper clause to basically claim it's a national legislature that can legislate on anything it wants. That was never the intention. And here we are with a fourth branch of government, this massive bureaucracy, which is clearly unconstitutional. If you want to make it constitutional, then you amend the Constitution in one of two ways. But that's not how they function on the left. That massive bureaucracy, that fourth branch of government, never passed the lips of a single delegate at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. It never passed the lips of a single delegate to the ratification conventions in our state capitals. Not one person brought it up or argued for it. Not one. And yet there it is. Massive. Because that's what the early progressives, a.k.a. American Marxists, wanted. Unelected judges and an unelected bureaucracy controlling our lives. That's what they wanted. That's why they hate Trump. Because he's challenging both. He's pushing back. He's doing it out of common sense. But what he's doing out of common sense has incredible consequences for our republic. Incredible. And this is why I support him. And this is why all conservatives should support him. We've never had somebody push back like this. Certainly not in modern times. We had Reagan, But now we have Trump. It's very important what he's trying to do. Very important. The so-called conservatives who attack him now, they have seriously psychological issues, or they're just more comfortable whining, talking, writing, having seminars where they talk to each other. Trump's not into that. He knows, I got one life to live. I'm only going to be here a certain amount of time. Let me make a difference. Let me do what's right. This is why on last night's Life, Liberty, and Levin, in the opening, I spent more time than usual, 20 minutes, in that monologue. And I went on about what past presidents have done, and I could have gone on for 20 hours. That make Donald Trump look like a Boy Scout as president of the United States. Yet they keep calling him a dictator, a despot, Hitler, on and on and on and on. They never said that about LBJ. Or John Kennedy, dare I say, and go on and on about it. Trump has done nothing like any of those presidents that I mentioned last night on Fox, or I just mentioned to you. Nothing. But what's true is true. And what the Constitution says, it says. And in this instance, the text is so clear, it is utterly unequivocal. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, comma, it goes on, it doesn't relate to what we're talking about. No person shall be elected to the office of president more than twice, and you should be very happy about this. Because Donald Trump won't be with us forever. We won't be here forever. And we don't want the iron fist of the radical left police state. Because that is a greater threat. Whether it's the judiciary, whether it's the bureaucracy, whether it's Congress, certainly the presidency, that is a greater threat than any other threat we face. The left, the Democrats. This is why they hate the Constitution. This is why they hate the Electoral College. This is why they hate separation of powers. This is why they attack the independence of the Supreme Court. Not the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, where you and I are debating and aggressively attacking the lower courts for stealing authority from another branch of government. No. They object to the Supreme Court because they don't get the outcomes that they want. They attack the electoral system. They have an entire bill put together that they introduce every 2 years to steal the authority from the states to run elections, to turn the whole nation into California, so that Republicans or any other party but the Democrat Party can never win. They borrow this from their Marxist brothers and sisters. A single party. They have a Communist Party. We have a Democrat Party. A single party. A one-party country where the other parties, well, they're like the Washington Generals playing the Harlem Globetrotters. They're there, but they're foils. They don't matter. The Republican Party would be the Washington Generals. In other words, you go through the motion of an election, but the outcome for the other party is certain. That's how they want to change the electoral process. So you and I have to stand as constitutionalists. We have to stand firm. And I intend to, no matter what comes. And I seriously doubt that anybody seriously believes that President Trump would run for the third term anyway. He loves to troll these people on the left, and they bite down hard every damn time. Every damn time. And no, I'm not defying the president. No, I'm not undermining the president. He and I are very, very good, close friends. Got that? That's simple. He's been through a hell of a lot, and I and you, we have stood with him through all the injustices, through all the abuses of power, through all the unconstitutional attacks on that man. If we have differences, maybe difference on a policy here or there, so be it. But I've explained the tariffs. I've explained what I believe his intentions are, certainly what I think the outcomes will be. Not because I love tariffs, but because I think the consequences of what he is doing and what he will do are going to have a huge impact on behalf of the United States and, in fact, creating much freer markets all over the world. We now have 130 countries, I believe, and we'll get to that a little later in the program, 130 countries or so who are trying to negotiate with us. Did you see that, Mr. Producer? Well, they're not trying to negotiate for higher tariffs. They're trying to negotiate for lower tariffs. They want us to lower ours now that he put them on, and they will lower theirs. And so the result will be the freest global trade in modern American history if he pulls it off. And only he can pull it off. And the Lilliputians biting at his heels, the so-called experts who are not experts, those who claim to be fiscal conservatives who've blown the lid off our budgets. Stop listening to them. If they were right, we wouldn't be here in the first place. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Listen, folks, if you're like me, you're passionate about protecting our American values. That's why I trust the Heritage Foundation. They're dedicated to promoting policies based on free enterprise, limited government, and traditional American values. The Heritage Foundation does more than just produce policy recommendations. They're mobilizing conservatives across the country. And right now, they need you to take action by completing their national survey on President Trump's agenda. Your responses to this survey will help guide Heritage leaders as they work closely with folks in Washington to promote your values, secure America's borders, and restore our freedoms. Here's what I want you to do. Visit heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/Levin to complete your survey. It's very, very important. My friends at Heritage need you to act now to help them maximize the impact on President Trump's first 100 days. Heritage is committed to preserving our Founding Fathers' principles and ensuring that America remains a beacon of freedom and opportunity. So I know you won't sit on the sidelines. You'll get involved, please, today, and make your voice heard. Visit heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/Levin. Please complete your survey today. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Great Heritage Foundation. For these reasons, other than Section 22 or my earlier comments, is why I talk about we live in a post-constitutional America. What is this? To the extent there are constitutional boundaries, it's no thanks to the Democrats or the left. It's no thanks to the media. And this battle between the president and the courts is a battle that is needed. It is needed. You can't just acquiesce to this judicial despotism and power grab, because once the precedent is set, it's going to be almost impossible to undo it, like in the state of Israel, where they essentially have a so-called Supreme Court that is akin to a Soviet-style Politburo. They're even deciding what amendments their legislature, their parliament, the Knesset, can pass to their own laws. And they've ruled that they cannot reform the Supreme Court. That must be great. So tyranny comes in many forms. It can be a president. It can be the courts. It can be the legislature. And the left almost doesn't care as long as it gets its tyranny. You know, Woodrow Wilson, in his writings, he was one of the early American Marxists. He pushed for an all-powerful president. And then he decided, no, I have a better idea, an all-powerful judiciary. Why? Because the judiciary is not elected. And so he got annoyed, as do most Marxists, American Marxists, so-called progressives, leftists, whatever you want to call them. They get annoyed with the interference in their project, with elections. And so they try to fix the elections so the outcome is certain. They try to empower their party, so regardless of the outcome of the elections, they have control. And short of that, they try to empower the unelected parts of the government, which they have, the bureaucracy and the judges. So election or no election, they rule the day. And that's where we are. And Trump says no. No, we're not. Can you imagine Republicans like Romney or Republicans like you name them? Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski. These are the buffoons. These are the fools that the hard left counts on. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, it's Monday, so the president must have had about 30, 40, 50-minute press conference, starting usually around 4 p.m. each day. It's really quite remarkable. You have the president of El Salvador, who's very impressive to me, President Bukele. Oh, he's a dictator. He's a dictator. Look, here's what I know. Number one, as far as El Salvador goes, he's not a dictator under the experience there. One of these brutal, iron-fisted dictators. But number two is President Trump once said to me, Mark, the world's full of crazy people, leading countries, dictators leading countries. Who am I supposed to talk to? Just our friends? But this guy is our friend. And it's funny, they never call the Marxists who lead these horrific, genocidal, repressive regimes in Central and South America. They never call them anything of the sort, do they? Cuba, Venezuela. I mean, even Bernie Sanders, an old Stalinist, they don't call him any of these things, do they? No, they're billionaires. Shut up, you old man. Sit down. Change your depends. Anyway, Donald Trump is in the Oval Office with President Bukele. Cut one, Mr. Producer, go.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take?
It's interesting, exporting. Number one, they belong to these countries. They don't belong to our country. So they're not exporting them. They're returning them to their homeland. Go ahead.
Well, and I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand it. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous, not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart.
It always amazes me how the media focus on one or two of these drug smugglers, gang members, and so forth, and come to their defense. Come to their, like this guy from El Salvador. They come to his defense. What about this? And what about this? Or the Hamas mouthpiece. What about his First Amendment rights? What about that? Sounds impressive, doesn't it? His First Amendment rights, they're very limited. His ass will be kicked out, like the judge said, and should be kicked out. As I've told you many times, the purpose of immigration, at least originally, was to invite people into the country who will contribute to its betterment, not who will lead riotous activity to overthrow it. That's just basic stuff that, a lot of judges graduating from Ivy League schools and their ilk either don't understand or they agree with them. Remember, Schumer put as many progressives, quote-unquote, Marxists on the court as he possibly could. President Bukele of El Salvador in the Oval Office today responds. Cut two, go.
Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle terrorists into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you can release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into
there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
He's so right. He's so blunt, and he's so right. How do you like this guy, though, Mr. Producer? This Bukele, I like this guy. What do you want me to do? How am I supposed to bring him back to the United States? Smuggle him into the United States? Well, can't you release him into your own country? He's going, what the hell would I do that for? And he's right. Do you know why he's popular? Do you know why he keeps getting elected and supported? Because it was the murder capital of the world. And he has slashed it. In terms of the world, it's a relatively safe country. As a matter of fact, do you know our State Department has lowered the level of concern to number 1? It's one of the lowest levels. London's number 2. In other words, you're more likely to have a crime committed against you in London than you are El Salvador. This guy turned the whole thing around in 4 or 5 years, which means punishing and imprisoning bad guys. Ooh, you're so harsh. No, I believe in protecting innocent people. I'm not harsh at all, except against them. Cut 2, Mr. Producer, go.
Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle terrorists into the United States, right?
Actually, let's go to cut 3. Sorry about that. Let's cut 3. Go ahead.
Well, we had a terrible thing happen. We had an administration that allowed people to come in freely into our country from not only South America, but from all over the world. Many from the Congo in Africa, Asia, all over the world, Europe, rough parts of Europe. And they came from prisons, and they came from mental institutions, and they came from gangs and the gangs of Venezuela and other places. And hundreds of thousands and even millions of them came. 21 million people altogether, but many of the people that came, just a tremendous percentage of them were criminals, in some cases violent criminals. We had 11,088 known murderers. Half of them murdered more than one person. This was allowed by a man who, what he did to our country is just unbelievable. So we're straightening it out. We're getting him out. But what they did and what that party did to our country, open borders, anybody could come in. As soon as I heard that, I said, every prison's going to be emptied out into our country. That's what happened.
It's so true what Biden did to this country. Now, here's something that will upset, over the weekend. Let me put it this way. A friend of mine posted, and these are just typical, the repetitious, they show really no thought whatsoever, that the warmongers are banging the drums of war. It's almost as if these folks speak for the enemy. The warmongers are the Iranians. They're not those of us who are warning about the Iranians and what they are saying, listening to what they're saying. This is an Islamo-Nazi regime that has killed Americans, that has maimed Americans. Put Israel aside. They killed our Marines in a barrack with Hezbollah, hundreds of them. They try to take out our president. These people say they love our president. That is, the people who seem to be special pleaders for Iran. And unfortunately, they're giving aid and comfort to Iran. Because Iran hears what these people say. They repeat what these people say. It's utterly unpatriotic and un-American, in my humble opinion. And they really need to think about what they're doing and what they're saying. They become sort of ideological mental midgets. Part of a cabal. And then they start telling you all of MAGA stands for that. No, it doesn't. Who said that? The head of MAGA is the President of the United States. He said, again today, Iran will not get a nuclear weapon. Now, it is possible that there are people around him, or people negotiating, who will claim peace in our time and wave a piece of paper in the air and say, see this? Who will have nothing more than what Obama had. I'm going to keep an eye on that. But that's not Trump. Let's play what the president said today, and you tell me, is he a warmonger? And those people who call those of us who believe in American security, who believe we ought to protect the American people from potential nuclear missiles, from an Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran. Let's see if they attack the President of the United States as a warmonger. Why do you attack his supporters as a warmonger, but not him? Because they're gutless, and they're also incoherent. Which is why none of them will debate me. Cut 4. Today, here's the president. Go.
Iran wants to deal with us, but they don't know how. They really don't know how. We had a meeting with them on Saturday. We have another meeting scheduled next Saturday. I said, that's a long time. That's a long time. So I think they might be tapping us along. But Iran has to get rid of the concept of a nuclear weapon. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. He can't have a nuclear weapon. Nobody can have. We can't have anybody having nuclear weapons, We can't have nuclear weapons. And I think they're tapping us along because we're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. And I had Iran.
Let's stop right there. Stupid people in this country are the people who are criticizing the smart people in this country who know what needs to be done with Iran. And despite throwing out one-liners or getting on social media and regurgitating what they say all the time or what somebody else says, if you use your head, if Iran has one nuclear missile, it'll have 101 nuclear missiles. They will be on intercontinental ballistic missiles, warheads. They'll be able to blackmail us. They'll be able to threaten us. And like Zuhdi Jasser, a Muslim, a dear friend, said on my show Saturday night, Mark, this isn't the Russians. It's not the Chinese. It's not the North Koreans. They were suicide bombers, and they will use nuclear weapons as suicide bombers use vests. Which is what I keep returning to. Do you think those people who struck at the heart of New York, the Pentagon, central Pennsylvania, if they had a nuclear weapon, you think they would use it, Mr. Producer? You better believe it. Why wouldn't they? But let me put it to you this way. Are we willing to take a chance? Your children, your grandchildren, the entire civilized West? That's how crazy these defenders of Iran are. And then when you tell them they're defending Iran, no, we're not. Yes, you are. And in fact, you're propagandists for Iran. Iran loves you people. They love you people. And many of the people, not all, in this country love that regime. But they won't admit it. They love that regime. It's a death cult, that regime, as Zuhdi puts it. That whole ideology is a death cult. And you would think people wouldn't need to have this explained to them night after night after night after night if they have two brain cells to rub together. And then they'll tell you it's Israel wants to drag us into a war. Mark Levin, I'm not dragging anybody into anything. You heard President Trump made his own mind up. The Israelis, of course, want to defend themselves. What? They're supposed to say it's no big deal if Iran has a nuclear weapon? How crazy ass is that? I'm sorry, we don't all agree with the Koch, Soros, Quincy Institute. I'm sorry, we don't all agree with Rand Paul. I'm sorry, we don't all agree with this guy Ruger or whoever the next one is. They're like zombies, one after another. I'm sorry, I don't believe America should effectively, unilaterally disarm in the face of terrorists with nuclear weapons. Gee willikers, I just don't think that's a great idea. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans. All right, let's go back, because I cut off President Trump, not intentionally, in that clip. Let's go back to cut 4, please. Go.
Iran wants to deal with us, but they don't know how. They really don't know how. We had a meeting with them on Saturday. We have another meeting scheduled next Saturday. I said, that's a long time. You know, that's a long time. So I think they might be tapping us along. But Iran has to get rid of the concept of a nuclear weapon. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. He can't have a nuclear weapon. Nobody can have it. We can't have anybody having nuclear weapons, you know? We can't have nuclear weapons. And I think they're tapping us along because we're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. And I had Iran perfect. You had no attacks. You would have never had October 7th in Israel, the attack by Hamas, because Iran was broke. They were stone cold broke when I was president. And I don't want to do it. I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us. I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
And what man speaks the truth. I love this guy. He always speaks the truth. You may not agree with him. I almost always agree with him. He speaks the truth. Now, I don't understand why that is a warmonger, and I don't understand why that is beating the drums of war. He's telling them the situation. Now, he's president of the United States. Unlike all the Lilliputians, unlike all the little chihuahuas biting at his heels, he's the commander-in-chief. He has a responsibility to keep the American people safe. This is not about some perverse ideology, because he knows that this isn't about a forever war. This is about a war to end wars that'll be over in about 35 minutes if they get a nuclear bomb that is a warhead to put on an intercontinental ballistic missile. And let me tell you something else. They're reaching a point where they won't even have to shoot it from their own territory. They'll move it somewhere else and do it. And what's to say they don't give it to a terrorist organization? What's to say they don't give it to other terrorist countries and so forth and so on? We'll have a disaster on our hands. A complete disaster on our hands. If you don't want war, forever wars or 35-minute wars, you got to agree with the president here. I do. So I don't know what's so controversial. It's very concerning. It's very difficult to work through this. And we know that the regime in Iran has tried to fool and has fooled multiple administrations, multiple negotiators. It's why the president, I hope, is surrounded by like-minded people, because this is hard enough for one man. It's hard enough. It's hard enough. I've never said to the president, me personally, here's what you need to do with Iran. I've never said it. I don't do it. I say what I believe here and now to you folks. I have my TV shows on Blaze and Fox. He comes to this conclusion on his own because he's smart. He comes to this conclusion on his own because he knows he can't be wrong, because to be wrong would mean the potential elimination of the United States of America, period, by a 7th century death cult in Tehran, Iran. I'll be right back. Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans. You know what I hate, Mr. Producer, when my damn pen leaks? Leak all over my hand here. Nobody gives a damn, of course. I don't blame you out there. You got other things to do. It just happened, so here I am sitting. All right. We have a new sponsor, a fantastic sponsor. Has been with us a few weeks. And I want you to listen to this, because this is a really important product that can really help protect you. In today's unprecedented world, Byrna, that's B-Y-R-N-A. Byrna offers a smarter, safer way to protect yourself. Trusted by over 500 government agencies, the Byrna less lethal pistol launcher, it's a pistol, is designed to incapacitate attackers without permanent harm, giving you time to escape or get help. Take Lauren's story. Confronted by an aggressive man who wouldn't back down despite attempts to de-escalate, Lauren was thankful for his Byrna launcher. One shot incapacitated the attacker. That's what it does. It incapacitates them, allowing police to intervene without anyone suffering irreparable harm. Now, this is the big point, too. It's legal across all 50 states. It requires no background checks, and it ships right to your door. I cannot strongly enough encourage you to acquire, to acquire a Byrna launcher, a Byrna pistol launcher. It's proudly assembled right here in the United States at Fort Wayne, Indiana. Over 500,000 units have been sold. It works. It does what it's supposed to do. And for my listeners, you get 10% off at Byrna.com/Levin. That's BYRNA.com/LEVIN. Byrna, BYRNA.com/LEVIN. Folks, protect yourself and your family the smart way with Byrna. You must be 18. Visit Byrna.com for details, BYRNA.com for details. Now, I also have 5 firearms, but now I have my Byrna. And I love it's a wonderful, whoever invented this, I guess they did. It's an incredible device. It's an incredible pistol. I don't have to hide it. It's the other thing. And so I strongly encourage you to get one. That's Byrna, BYRNA.com/LEVIN. Levin. We got a lot to get to here, folks, and the show is half over, for crying out loud. And I want to remind you at all times that you can always listen to the entire show whenever you wish. Just go to marklevinshow.com. That's the mothership. That's my website. And you'll see we have a YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and plug in Mark Levin Show. We have our podcast lane. Just go to your favorite podcast platform and type in Mark Levin Show, and you're set. That's it. Hey, what happened to Mark? You can find me anywhere. We have our friends at Sirius XM Satellite. They're fantastic. We have the Mark Levin app. We have the iHeartRadio app, live streaming on virtually every station. Of course, we have our fantastic affiliates, which I'm always grateful to, all of them. All of them. Here we have Bernie Sanders at Coachella. Now, I didn't know what the hell Coachella is because I've made it my business to stay out of this culture. That's right. I built a cocoon around myself. I don't want the wokeism, the DEI, the CRT, the ABC. I don't want any of it. So I live in my own culture. But every now and then, the culture bites me. So there's Bernie Sanders at Coachella, which is basically an event where mostly well-to-do or very well-to-do people from this family or that family, they show up at this event and they have a good time. It's music festival, art festival, and here comes the Stalinist, the Marxist. I'd speak there if they invited me. I really would. And I'd set the whole damn thing straight about this guy, Bernie Sanders, how he wants to steal your liberty, how he wants to steal your property, how he wants to steal your future and opportunity. That's why this jackass will never debate me. Because nobody confronts this guy the way he needs to be confronted. It drives me crazy. Bernie, come on the show, Bernie. Before it's too late, before whatever. And AOC. And Raskin. All the Marxists. All the Marxists. In the case of Bernie Sanders, he's a Stalinist. I can prove it. If he comes on the show, I'll prove it. And I can prove to you that Raskin is an old communist, just like his daddy. But they won't come on, so I can confront them with it. Because they know CNN won't. They know MSNBC won't. They know that. So here he is at Coachella. I thought Coachella was like a dessert or something, Mr. Producer. You did too? It sounds like one of those fancy desserts where you get way too little that costs way too much. Like one of these French desserts or, Oh, I'll have the Coachella, please. Okay. Would you like it with the fudge on it? Yes, I would. Thank you. Here's Bernie Sanders at Coachella. Cut 5, go.
This country faces...
Okay, I can barely stand this guy. I can barely stand his voice. People talk about my voice. Listen to this guy's voice. He's like an old homeless guy. Wearing a raincoat, naked underneath. Maybe cigarettes to hand out to, to whomever passes by. Let me put it that way. At the top of his lungs, repeating the same old red garbage, the same old communist garbage. All right, cut 5. Go from the top, please. Yeah.
This country faces some very difficult challenges. And the future of what happens to America is dependent upon your generation.
Pass the pot.
Now you can turn away and you can ignore what goes on, but if you do that, you do it at your own peril. We need you to stand up to fight for justice.
What is it? Hold on. What does that mean? Fight for justice. Well, what kind of justice is he talking about? He hates the cops. He hates the military. He wants the border wide open. He doesn't agree on deporting domestic terrorists and gang members. What justice is this man talking about? They throw these words around like they actually mean something. Go ahead.
For economic justice.
Oh, economic justice. Oh, okay. Economic justice. Socialism. That's what he means. What? They take these social shibboleths and they apply it to the economy. We need economic justice. I have an idea. Get off your ass, work for a living, make some money, and try and keep most of it to take care of yourself and your family. That's called economic freedom. Economic justice? Economic justice? Go ahead.
And racial
Hold on.
justice.
They're clapping. Yay! Yay! I don't know what he means, but yay! Oh, and racial justice. How many Marxist regimes have racial justice? Do they have it in China? Where the Uyghurs are being rounded up, 2.5 million of them? How about that? In the Marxist regimes, where's racial justice? How about the Tibetans who are being destroyed? in communist China. That's the biggest example of Bernie's philosophy right there. And how is it in Russia, in the old Soviet Union, with Jews? And not just Jews, others too. How'd that work out? The Marxists oppose faith. They oppose religion. So they wipe it out. They oppose the family structure. The family social structure, the nuclear family. So they wipe that out. Social justice, social justice. What do they mean by that? Do you get due process in communist regimes? Is that what he means? You certainly do not. Are you allowed to read whatever books you want? No. You're allowed to criticize your government? No. So what does he mean by social? Drag your ass in here, you old fool. Woo. Or how about the young fool, AOC? You drag your ass in here. No, they don't want to be confronted. Here's AOC last week. You know what? Let's do it this way. Let's go to cut 17, Mr. Producer. Here is Bernie Sanders, 1993, 1994, 1995, hat tip Mays. We love this guy, Mays on X. Let's see, 2007, 2012, 2014, 15, 17, 18. Says the same damn thing because the Marxists love repetition. Repetition rewires your brain. That's the truth. Ask any licensed psychologist. Ask any unlicensed psychologist. Go ahead.
This great country of ours is moving very rapidly in the direction of oligarchy. The United States of America today is increasingly becoming an oligarchy. More and more moving toward an oligarchy. We are moving in the direction of oligarchy. We will move even more rapidly in the direction of an oligarchy. This great country is evolving into an oligarchic society. It is called oligarchy, and that is the system we are rapidly moving toward. This is a budget that moves our country rapidly into the direction of oligarchy. A handful of billionaires are moving this entire planet toward an oligarchic society.
Start off with the bad news, which is pretty bad, and that is that under Donald Trump, this country is hurtling rapidly toward oligarchy.
What a stupid old man, seriously. And they give him the platforms on TV, and they give him the platforms at these festivals and the platforms, and there he is. Just pathetic. But he's welcome in the Democrat Party, America, because the Democrat Party opens its arms to every freak, fraud, and phony. It opens its arms to every reprobate, malcontent, and miscreant. That's the umbrella. That's the focus. That's the target of the Democrat Party. So they drag in the likes of AOC. They drag in the likes of this old bird. Yes. The oligarchy, the billionaires. The billionaires. And the oligarchy. Where's my Metamucil? I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Don't get suckered into the same old free phone game by Big Wireless that comes with a lot of fine print, like requiring you to sign up for 4 lines plus activation fees, plus. And the end of the day, you've paid for that free phone 3 times over. Pure Talk is my sponsor, my wireless company. They have a much better offer. With a qualifying plan of just $35 a month, you can get a brand new Samsung Galaxy A26 for free. Now, this phone is virtually indestructible. Gorilla Glass captures beautiful wide-angle photos with next-generation camera lenses. All you need to do is switch to Pure Talk. For just $35 a month, you get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data, more than you'll ever need, with mobile hotspot, all on one of America's most dependable 5G networks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch. Again, that's puretalk.com/LEVIN to claim your free Samsung Galaxy with qualifying plan when you switch to Pure Talk. Wireless by Americans for Americans. Great guest next hour. President of the Heritage Foundation, a good friend of mine, Kevin Roberts. This guy is really solid. And I can't wait to talk to him, so you'll want to join us, I think, in hour 3. We'd love to do that with you. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, Israel's still under attack. And I want to thank the president for pounding the crap out of the Houthis. For us, 319 times they've attacked our military and commercial ships. Our military personnel and our civilians. 319 times, according to the Pentagon. By the way, this Hakeem Jeffries, you piece of crap. I'll get to him in hour 3. Attacking our man, Pete Hegseth. He can't hold a finger to Pete Hegseth wearing that stupid hat. Not because it says Yankees, because it's too big. It covers his face. Actually, I like it. It covers his face. Here's what I was referring to. Hakeem Jeffries. Instagram yesterday attacks our man, Pete Hegseth, who's doing a fabulous job over there at the Department of Defense. Cut 6, go.
These DEI hires in the Trump administration, like Pete Hegseth.
Actually, you're the DEI hire. You are. And I don't know what you're putting it down for. You support DEI. The left supports DEI. Front groups support DEI. And then when you mention their DEI, they say you're racist. So now he's trying to be clever. He's trying to be clever. I don't know how much time you spend in combat zones, Hakeem. I suspect not 1 second. But Hegseth has. He served his country. You have not. Go ahead.
Dumb effing individuals.
Whoa, a dumb effing individual. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The man who wants to be Speaker of the House. Whose uncle's Leonard Jeffries, a big-time anti-Semite. But don't worry. Speaker of the House. Compare him to our Speaker of the House. He wouldn't even say effing. He's such a proper gentleman. He's such a class act. But there's Hakeem. He represents the lowest of the lowlives in his party and in his caucus. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Hakeem Jeffries is in no position to be talking down Hegseth or anybody else. And I'm quite serious about it. Quite serious. The guy's a radical kook. He's done nothing to contribute to the betterment of this country if I were to ask anybody. Even people who claim to be Democrats and support him, what has he done? They don't have the foggiest idea. None. Hegseth, he says, is DEI. How do we know he's not DEI? He started it. Is that not a fair question? No, I see. It's not a fair question. Then he says effing. He's an effing, what did he say? Effing idiot or something like that? This guy wants to be Speaker of the House. He should be Speaker of the brothel. With a mouth like that. And here is Pete Hegseth, who's going to turn out to be one of the greatest defense secretaries we've ever had, in my opinion. I really believe this. He's really motivated. He's got a lot of energy. Shows up for work. He's got a lot of great ideas. He's already putting a lot of reforms in place. This guy is good. Really good. Cut 7, Mr. Producer. Go.
Well, I can tell you that President Trump is dead serious on this issue. He's dead serious that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. He's said that for 20 years.
Wow, another warmonger. Another guy beating the war of the drums of war. Oh, my gracious goodness. No, he's a patriot. And he understands that we need to protect we the people from an Islamo-Nazi terrorist regime. God forbid if they ever get a nuclear weapon. If they get one, they'll get 101. God knows who they'll give them to, the technology they'll give to. They won't have any compunction about doing things with this technology that are unimaginable. They march to a different drummer. The drums of war. Go ahead.
He's dead serious that he wants it done at the negotiating table. He wants it done peacefully. Yeah. And that's why he's going straight to these talks. He set that deadline. These were productive talks yesterday. I don't want to get ahead of our skis. Steve Witkoff does a fantastic job, but it was a good step.
And we'll see how fantastic this job is. You know, you always got to look at the fine print. I mean, Obama thought he did a fantastic job. They all think they do fantastic jobs. Maybe they have. That would be very exciting if they did. It'd be the first time with Iran, because Iran doesn't honor any deal. And that's what I'm concerned about. Let's say we're the most brilliant negotiator on the face of the earth. Let's say we do. They come up with the most fantastic document. Look, our Constitution is the most fantastic document. And the people who are violating it aren't terrorists. They're Democrats. They're leftists. They're American Marxists. Now imagine in the hands of terrorists what they would do. You see my point? They're not, oh, wait a minute. This provision says we can't do this. Or the United States might do what? Do what? And once they get a nuclear weapon, then what are we going to do? Nothing. That's the problem. I have no problem with negotiations, but they have to come out right. There was a wonderful letter that a few of the Republicans in the House put out. They said, look, this has to be disarmament. They have to dismantle what they have. It's not a matter of we'll put it off a few years, or we'll just use it, to heat our homes in the middle of the desert. We'll bring down the level from 90% to 43.5% when it comes to the fissile material and so forth. No. We have no way of enforcing any of this stuff. So we can't have another peace in our time moment. We just can't. It's got to be real. Go ahead.
But he's also dead serious that if we can't figure this out at the negotiating table, then there are other options, to include my department, to ensure that Iran never has a nuclear bomb. We hope we never get there. We really do, Maria. But what we're doing with the Houthis and what we're doing in the region, we've shown a capability to go far, to go deep, and to go big. And again, we don't want to do that. But if we have to, we will, to prevent the nuclear bomb in Iran's hands.
Ooh, all these warmongers. And what about the Panama Canal? Cut 8, go.
Well, President Trump said in his State of the Union address, China has too much influence over the Panama Canal and America's going to take it back. And that's exactly what I was charged to do, what we're continuing to do. China's influence cannot control our own backyard, especially a critical waterway, key terrain like the Panama Canal. You mentioned 40% of ships are U.S. ships. 75% are going to or from a port. So we were able to secure 2 historic agreements. One with the Panama Canal Authority, that our ships, our military vessels and auxiliary vessels will travel first and free through that Panama Canal. And then we also signed a memorandum of understanding with the defense secretary over there and the president that established a robust and growing U.S. presence, right? You need to secure that key terrain. So Fort Sherman will reopen jointly with the Panamanians, a jungle school, and we're going to have a larger U.S. presence at the invitation of Panama, working with them to keep the communist Chinese out. If we can't use that waterway in a key contingency, then China has an advantage. Other presidents have allowed us, we've been sort of asleep at the wheel. President Trump has said we need to be serious about our own backyard. That includes a place like the Panama Canal. And I want to thank President Molino, a pro-Trump, pro-America president of Panama, who's sticking his neck out against communists whose influence was real there, Maria. We could see it. You could feel it. The communist Chinese want to control politicians. They're building infrastructure projects. They want to surveil. They want to take that canal. President Trump says, not on our watch, and we're fighting back.
Wow, does he sound DEI to you, America? Not that there's anything wrong with that, right, Hakeem? He doesn't sound DEI to me. He sounds like he knows exactly what the hell he's doing. And look what he's done in a couple of short months as Secretary of Defense compared to his predecessor, Austin. Look what he's done. I mean, we're already dealing with Panama in the way that they need to be dealt with. The Houthis, the way they need to be dealt with. Iran, obviously they're poised in case they need to use weapons against them. And they're dealing with a weapons arsenal that has been horribly depleted by the Biden regime. And that needs to get built up too. I hope they get this damn budget passed and get it passed very, very soon. Especially those tax cuts that will help us, of course. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, there's lots of chaos going on. How do you know? The Democrats told us there's chaos. And again, like they're communist bedfellows, they like to repeat themselves. Yeah, slogans. They use slogans. Listen to this from our friends, the Western Liesman on Twitter, on X. And this is the new word. Chaos. Cut 9, go.
We begin this hour with the chaos. The average American sees chaos. The American people see chaos.
It's total chaos. You brought chaos.
It's just complete chaos.
Unleashed an economic chaos.
They unleash chaos.
They are creating chaos.
This chaos.
There's too much chaos.
Total chaos.
That amidst the chaos,
I'm going to see chaos.
After seeing all the chaos,
the chaos he has unleashed on America.
Continue to see the chaos.
Economic chaos.
A lot more chaos.
Trump's chaos.
This is chaos. With such chaos.
The chaos. Because of this chaos. Chaos.
All of this chaos.
Uncertainty.
Are they saying chaos, Mr. Producer, or kiosk? I can't tell.
Chaos.
Is it both? Yeah.
It's more chaos, dysfunction.
The chaos is the purpose. The chaos is the goal.
It's chaos.
Oy. Well, it's chaos. If they say so, it must be true. What happened to Hitler? Now it's chaos. It's so confusing. What do they do? I'm serious. Do they send out texts overnight? The word is chaos. You know, like Jeopardy? The word is chaos. No, that's not. It's password, right, Mr. Producer? Password. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Kevin Hassard is the director of National Economic Council. He was on the Constipated News Network today. I don't know why anybody goes there. Number one, nobody watches them. Number two, the people who, the broadcasters are all lightweights and worse. But cut 10, Mr. Producer, go.
The reciprocal act was basically, guys, if you come to the table and negotiate with us and treat us the same way we treat you, then we'll get your rate really low. And so right now, 130 countries. So
that's the point. 130 countries will get your rate low. He put these tariffs in place as bargaining chips. And to protect not so much protect our economy, but to grow our economy. That is, to create sort of a global market system, much more free market than currently exists. This is what people aren't understanding. Go ahead.
And we're negotiating with them, and they've got their rate down to 10%. And so really, it's kind of almost a two-world system. There's a process about China, and that's very, very nascent, if at all. And then the process for everybody else. So the process for everybody else is orderly. It's clear. People are coming to town with great offers. We've got Japan, Korea, India. I was just talking to the
what about Minister. Botswana? Are they in line? Come on now. Go ahead.
Yeah, and everything is moving forward very quickly. And so I guess the bottom line is that the small business owner has experienced over the last few weeks the start of a process that's settling down really quite quickly. Again, 130 countries are at 10% now.
So think about that. 130 countries are at 10%. And this is a big deal. Now, Communist China, they're meeting today, or they did, with the heads of Vietnam. Now, the little background on this that people aren't thinking about. Communist China has been claiming the right to navigable waters off the shore of Vietnam. In other words, the ocean. They've literally been destroying Vietnamese shipping boats that they claim are in their waters. And this is what China's doing. This is sort of what Hitler did and others. They just keep grabbing. And that's why they had a live fire training naval session in the waters of Australia. Not international waters even, without giving them a heads up. That's why they're claiming right now islands that belong to the Philippines. The Philippines, that's an island nation. There are hundreds of islands. They can't possibly defend every one of them. That's why they're claiming islands off of Japan, which they've never, ever had any ownership right to, belong to them. Formosa, was what Taiwan used to be called. And it's quite clear that Taiwan was never a part of mainland China, never part of the mainland. They never had any claim to it. But this is what they're doing. And so my view is this. Get tougher on communist China. Tougher, economically tougher. It doesn't just have to be tariffs. It can be limits on what they can ship into our country. That's what Reagan did to some countries. He wasn't big on tariffs, but he was bigger on economic quotas. I understand there's some things that we need that China has, but we have got to wean ourselves off that. China, these guys are not 10 feet tall. They're not 10 feet tall. Yeah. And yet we have a soft underbelly in this country. It's called the Democrats. And while Donald Trump is taking on these countries like China, people like Ro Khanna, who poses as a smart guy, kind of a moron. Elizabeth Warren, who poses as a moron and is a bigger moron than she poses as. And that Trump is the problem. He's the problem. Let's go to cut 12, not cut 11. Cut 12, Mr. Producer, go.
Well, let's keep in mind, tariffs can be an important tool in the toolbox when used in targeted ways. But
so here's the thing. They've always loved tariffs on the left. Always. They don't believe in an open economy. But Trump is using tariffs differently than any Democrat has ever used them. And I've explained this differently than FDR. He wants to create enormous domestic economic growth. He wants to rebuild the industrial heartland of the country and various industries throughout the country. He's gotten out of the ridiculous climate change deal. He's lifting all the regulations on energy production and refinement. He wants to slash taxes, including business taxes across the board. We have the highest corporate income tax rate, not only in the free world, but China's corporate income tax rate is lower than ours. That's insanity. That's ridiculous. I get the class warfare of the Democrats, but we ought not pay along. And by the way, we actually have Republicans now that are talking like Democrats. They're out there saying, look, we can do these things. Let's raise taxes on the rich. And so here we go with the Republicans. What do they mean by rich? They mean more than billionaires. And why are they playing the Marxist class warfare game? Taxes across the board. That's what Reagan did. That's what Trump did. Why are we now talking about, quote unquote, taxes on the rich? Like Marxists. And the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he's not excited about, quote unquote, taxes on the rich. Is the problem that these Republicans don't know how to push back against Bernie Sanders? Why is that? They're elected to office. That's some achievement. You gotta duke it out in your primaries and everything else. But apparently they just don't know how to handle the Democrats. Cut 14, go.
Mr. Speaker, one of the movements within the Congress is to, I guess, raise taxes on the rich in order to pay for these tax extensions for the lower earners, like the no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security. The idea that you can have a new tax bracket of 40% for the highest earners. Are you seriously considering that?
Let's stop a second. First of all, she's wonderful. I'm a big fan of Maria's. Absolutely fantastic. A 40% tax rate. If you're in California, you pay 40% then on federal taxes and 13% on state tax, 53%. And God knows what they do to you depending on the local government. It's similar in New York. It's similar in New Jersey. It's similar in Illinois. Why would Republicans go along with this stuff? I don't care that they're Democrat states. Those costs are passed along to us. So you're going to have the Republicans who want to raise taxes, quote unquote, on the rich. The money's going to be pissed away. Hasn't Doge showed them anything either? The government doesn't need more money. It needs less. A lot less. We need more money. Our money that we earned. So why are you playing this class warfare claptrap game with taxes on the rich? Why do you even sound like these Mises was right. We all sound like and think like Marxists now. That's what he said. And these Republicans are pathetic. I don't know who they are. I'd read it out to you. They kind of hang around in the swamp. They kind of speak off the record, or they're very squirrely. They're very squirrely, but I'm just telling you now, this is how they speak. Go ahead.
I'm not a big fan of doing that. I mean, we're the Republican Party, and we're for tax reduction for everyone. So, I mean, that's a general principle that we always try to abide by. There's lots of discussion, lots of ideas on the Hill. People have different thoughts and theories on how we can solve this perfect equation to get all of this done. But I wouldn't put any money on any of that yet. I guess everybody, I would say just stay tuned. The next 5 to 6 weeks are going to be critical as all these negotiations happen in the committees of jurisdiction. You'll hear lots of rumors and lots of talk, but we'll see where it all lands. We've got to build consensus. We have to go.
There's a very sensible man, no question about it. Tax cuts for the rich. Well, I guess you can't really have tax cuts for the poor because they don't pay taxes. I'll be right back.
The Mark Levin Show, the pool feed for the conservative media. Dive in now. 877-381-3811.
Carmelo Anthony killed a young man, 17 years old, because they got into a dispute in the stands, and he pulled out a knife and stuck it in his heart. Just one stab is all it took. With his twin brother standing there, holding him while he bled to death. Austin Metcalf is dead today. A high school student at a track meet who was in the stands. Carmelo Anthony stabbed him in the chest and killed him. The cops go there. He basically confesses, and he says, can I say self-defense? No, you don't get to just stab somebody in the heart and kill them because you may get into a fight of one sort or another, or a pushing situation or a grabbing situation. We've all been there if you're a guy. You stab somebody in the heart. You killed this 17-year-old. His bond had been set at $1 million. Then the Collin County District Judge, Angela Tucker, lowers it to $250,000. Typically, I don't know how it works there. You put up 10%, but maybe all in this case. And, of course, the lunatics out there raised $450,000 so far in legal fees to help the person. Platform Give, Send, Go, I guess it's called. Give, Send, Go. You can only imagine what that 17-year-old was thinking in his final moments of life. I can't believe this is happening to me. And he bled out right there in the arms of his twin brother. And I'm supposed to have sympathy for this killer? I'm supposed to believe it was self-defense? Self-defense? The other kid didn't have a weapon. They're two big kids, 17 years old. He stabbed him in the heart. Raising money so he has a defense. What the hell's going on in this country anyway? What is going on in this country? And what, is this going to be turned into a reverse racial situation? Since the victim is white and the perpetrator is black? I can assure you if the perpetrator was white and the victim was black, we'd be hearing different things. Look, I've been doing this too long. I've seen these cases. I've heard them. We've talked about them. There is no excuse for pulling a knife and stabbing somebody in the heart. He didn't have a gun. He didn't have another knife. His life was not being threatened. But his life is destroyed now. It should be destroyed now. My son is gone. He'll never come home again, Austin's father, Jeff Metcalf, said. Do not politicize this. This is a human being thing. This person made a bad choice and affected both his family and my family forever. Yeah, I'll say. I don't know who's talking about politics. I sure as hell am not. Yeah. Just, Then we have, a Jupiter man. Jupiter, Florida. A beautiful area. I love Jupiter, Florida. No bail for man accused of posting Facebook threats against President Trump day before his Jupiter trip, writes the Texans Wire. 73-year-old Jupiter man remains in custody following his arrest last week after authorities allege he made threatening online posts against Trump. Faces one count of making a written threat to kill or injure the president. And it goes on. It goes on. Unbelievable. And there's more. I have an article here where the Secret Service says there are threats, death threats against President Trump every single day. Every single day. And I want to thank the media and the Democrats for the language they've been using against Trump, which stokes this stuff, and they damn well know it. They damn well know it, and they damn well don't care. Because they can't be held to account. How are you going to hold them to account? And then another crazy damn thing. Man charged with attempted murder, terrorism, and fire at Governor Shapiro's home. So this guy lives, I don't know, less than an hour away. Name is Cody Balmer. He climbs a 7-foot fence, which is where the governor's mansion is in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the state capital. Then he breaks a window and he throws in 2 Molotov cocktails that he made. And the house caught on immediate fire. It's frightening, actually. He kicked open the dining room door and left the house. Walked off the property, climbed back over the fence before running away. They have security footage. Allegedly later told the cops that if he had encountered Shapiro, he planned to beat the governor with a hammer that he used to break the windows. So the obvious question is, how the hell did this guy get over a 7-foot fence without being noticed? Sometimes these things just boggle my mind. They boggle my mind. Balmer had to be taken to the hospital. Apparently he has mental issues that have no connection to the fire. He went off his meds, his mother said. She also said she tried to get the police involved multiple times, but they didn't respond in any effective way. He's charged with attempted homicide, aggravated arson, burglary, reckless endangerment, terrorism, loitering, 2 counts of aggravated assault, filed in Dauphin County. Really, this is horrendous because the governor's mansion took significant damage, and he and his family were sleeping upstairs until security banged on his door. He ran down, he opened it, and the house was on fire. Who's ever heard of things like this? Crazy and frightening, and appalling. Now, we're not going to lower the rhetoric because, we got to get Trump. Trump's got to go, and other people. Apparently, one of these guys, I'm trying to figure out which one it was. You have another guy. You see this one, Mr. Who killed his parents? Kills his parents, gets $14,000 in cash, gets $14,000 in jewelry, and he's got like a neo-Nazi connection overseas or something to that effect. All the facts haven't come out. And he did it because he wanted to be able to kill Donald Trump. Do you see that? He already bought some drones, and apparently overseas, some individuals, and believe it or not, they think they were Russians. I'm sorry, Putinoids. Look, my ancestry's Russian. It is what it is. It's not, it's not like you choose these things. I'm just telling you the truth. They were teaching him how to use the drones and so forth and so on. So the FBI is going to have to look into this and see if this wasn't a foreign instigated attack. But this punk That's what he did, and his plan was to assassinate Donald Trump. Use a drone or something to that effect, and he kills his parents. He kills his stepfather and his mother. Can you imagine? Yep. And this is going on. I tell you, it goes on crazy. It just does. All right. I'm sitting here thinking about this, trying to get the latest news on it. I think that's the latest that we have here. Let's take a couple of calls, if I may. Hold on. I got to get back in here. Boo, boo, boo. Let's go here. Hey, we're live and national. Don't knock it. All right, here we go. Printer is suspect. I blame the Russians on that, too. All right, I'm almost there. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Thank you, Christian. Let's take a call. Ira, Fort Worth, Texas, the great WBAP. Ira, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Mark?
Very well, thank you, Ira.
Hey, I appreciate all you're doing. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. If Trump was able to get into discovery against some of these political foes that are trying to stall and delay, would he be able to do anything about it, helping get them out of place so that they could not stall anymore?
Well, you can't just sue them. They're the petitioners. They're the plaintiffs. They're suing over particular issues, and you can't sue them for bringing the suits. I mean, you can counterclaim in certain instances in civil court. There's no question about it, but that doesn't apply here. They're suing the government. They want information from the government, so the government can't say, well, you know what, we're suing you. I guess in discovery, they can see what sources of money they have and so forth and so on if they can convince a judge that it's relevant, because there would be objections. But that's all well and good, and I don't have a problem with them making that effort. I just think some of these judges, some of the more radical, aggressive ones, they need to have their positions abolished. Like Boasberg, and also this woman judge who is holding on to this case involving this guy in El Salvador, the MS-13 guy. She's way out of her lane, and a couple of the others. That's what needs to be done. Their courts need to be abolished. They were created. They need to be abolished. Thank you for your call, my friend. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Can we get the judges on sedition? No, we can't get judges on sedition, Christian, so we'll drop that. There's a new name for the Democrat. Okay. Let's see. That one. Yeah, but obviously, how would we get the judges on sedition? I mean, come on. It's just not logical. Sedition. Hold them on sedition. But seriously, what do people want us to do? Start to arrest the judges and throw them in prison, accuse them of sedition, and then what? Another judge has to rule on it? Is that going to work? Do you think that'll work, Mr. Producer? No, I don't think so either. So we don't need callers like that. Tomorrow is tax day. Now, in some states, you get a little bit of a break if there's been a hurricane. I know in Florida, I think they moved it to May 1st. I could be wrong. Check for yourselves. But that's the situation. Let's go to Ronnie, WMAL, Washington, D.C. Ronnie, how are you?
Doing good. How you doing?
Okay.
I have a question about Governor Shapiro in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Since the Democrats are giving you 2, 3, 5, 10 chances before they put you in jail, you think since this guy was apparently medically ill and off his medicines, he'll pardon him or let him go?
Wait, you think Shapiro will pardon the guy that tried to burn his house down? I don't think so.
He probably pardoned.
Why would he do that?
Else. Well, if somebody tried to burn somebody else's house down, he might.
I know, but he's not going to do it in his own case. Thanks for your call. Tony, Silver Springs, Maryland, the great WMAL. Go.
Hi, Mark. Just a quick question for you. I'd like to look at this from a conservative point of view.
Look at what from a conservative point of view?
Well, just it's a bit of a moral dilemma, but we have the millions of people who've come here illegally, and Biden certainly let them all in. And when you come here illegally, you broke the law. But I'm going to venture to say that the majority of people who are illegal immigrants, other than that initial crime of coming here illegally, are not criminals. I see that in my own community. Most of them are, trying to raise their families.
All right, listen to me a second. So where would you draw the line?
I don't know. That's what I'm looking for.
Well, you got to figure it out if you're a policymaker, don't you? We have a border. People violated the border. They've come here. They're making a nice living for themselves. And you say, okay, they're working hard. They're making a nice living. They should stay.
Well,
correct?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying...
Well, then they should go.
Okay, I mean, like I say, I just take no joy in that. It may be that we have to do it.
That's a different issue. I don't take any joy in it either. But that said, people broke the law. They knew they were breaking the law. And there are other people still waiting. Some of them in hellholes, the worst kind of hellholes on the face of the earth. And they broke into the line. They broke into the country. They knew what they were doing would potentially expose them to deportation. And I just don't feel the way you do.
How are we going to get rid of 20 million people, though?
Well, maybe we won't get rid of, quote-unquote, 20 million people, but you've got to start a process, and they have. Criminals first, and then others who are here and so forth. But my question to you is, 20 million illegal aliens, or aliens, period, and then they have birthright citizenship for their children, and then on top of that, they have chain migration, which means they can bring up 20, 30, 40 of their relatives into the country? You think that's okay? You think this country can withstand that? I don't. It was C.S. Lewis who said something to the sort of, tyranny seems to always be built on the notion of virtue. There's real virtue and there's fake virtue. All right. I want to salute all you heroes out there. And we'll do this again tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. God bless.